Curtis says, does Dutch Mantell have any memories of working alongside Bruno Sammartino? And does Dutch remember any backstage stories of Bruno Sammartino? And if any other wrestlers felt jealous of his long championship reign? So, did Bruno ever visit a territory that you were part of back in the 70s or 80s?
I think he came to Puerto Rico once, Bruno, but he just came down on vacation and thought he'd work a show, I guess. Of course, a lot of Puerto Ricans have spent time in New York, so they really knew who Bruno was. But he was in the other dressing room. He was across the whole baseball field for me. And that's when we used to come out of the different dressing rooms. Oh, imagine that, wrestlers in different dressing rooms. And still had matches and never talked a match over. You just go to the ring and you got what you got. But I never met him. And now let's go back to, some people feel bad because they worked under him, or they were jealous of him because of his long title reign. Bruno Sammartino didn't keep that long reign for nothing. He kept the long reign because of production. He put asses in seats. That was the days before pay-per-view. That was the days before TV contracts. He put asses in seats in Madison Square Garden, the Boston Gardens, Philadelphia Spectrum, Pittsburgh, whatever that, in the Baltimore arena downtown. He put asses in those seats, and they were basically running then just off ticket sales. I don't even think they had gotten into, back in those days, they hadn't even gotten into the merchandise sales that much. I mean, they had it, but it was a long time coming before all of a sudden said, hey, we need to brand this stuff and put it out there so the people can buy it. Then they showed how much it could bring in. Oh yeah, we're all on the gimmick bandwagon now. But he put asses in seats, and no, he didn't work every day. He didn't work probably Harrison, Pennsylvania, or I think that's where they did TV. But he didn't work those smaller shows. He worked the big ones.
Well, in his first reign, I think he did. On his second reign, it was more of a part-time affair. So he sort of negotiated a part-time affair to sort of keep his body...
I don't blame him.
...surviving, I guess, those extra years.
And how did he do that? You know how he did it? How the promoter did it? Kept running new villains in about every 8 months, 9 months. He'd run a big killer heel in. I'm going toward... And that was their MO. They would keep running those big, massive, fear-driven, badass heels by Bruno. And then the big heel would beat all the other baby faces. And the people were thinking, oh, wait a minute. Wait till he runs into Bruno. And that's going to change. And then the first time he run into Bruno, if he beat Bruno, then you just got to go about 6 weeks down the line and Bruno was going to get his title back. That's the only way he could have had it for 8 years is because the promoter wanted him to have it, because the promoter was making money with Bruno Sammartino. And no, I don't think the other guys, they may have privately said, I'd like to be in the spot Bruno is, because that was jealousy. I don't blame him. I'd want to be in the same spot too. But that wasn't going to change. And that was old school anyway. And they had their territory. It was the same guys that worked the same territories for years and years and years and years. It didn't change around like it does today, or maybe even 10 years ago.
Yeah, I don't remember people being on the undercard of, not that I was there, obviously, but Hulk Hogan, in the 80s when, he was packing out every single arena. I mean, I'm sure there was a couple of people on top who were openly jealous and wanted to be where he was, but for everybody else who was working on the undercard and getting those great payoffs, I'm sure they wanted him to be champion forever. I'm sure,
Yep.
what was that? Thank you for the house. Where
Yes,
that all
that's
said,
it.
yeah.
Thank you for the house. Because when it sold out, say you may make $500 there as a regular payoff, but you may make $1,000. And what did you have to do with it? Zero. You were depending on what they do and how you got paid. That's why it come up, thank you for the house. Now that's when they paid third. Then it got to where the promoters, and this is how promoters got to be distrusted because they wouldn't turn in the gate, the correct gate for it. So if somebody asked them, they said no, instead of $100,000 gate, it was a $70,000 gate. So and that cuts your, that cuts your payoff down. Plus the number of guys on the card, they were all paid out of the same pile. So sometimes the fourth match, fifth match makes the same thing as the first match. But your main event got most of the money because they were responsible for it.
Yeah, I believe when Bruno was champion and WWF at the time was the main eventers got paid great. The undercard didn't get paid very well. So I think...
Well, for the time, let's take 30 years ago. $500 for a shot at, say, Houston. They didn't get paid like the main event got paid. But see, $500, and they was going to do the same work, whether they got $100 payoff. It's the same thing. Cost them the same amount to go to the town, same amount to stay over, but they had $500 to play with and pay with it instead of $100.